Hi, everybody. I'm Donna Reid, and this is Donna Reid Talks Voice. And I would like to introduce you to Anya, who is an amazing jazz singer. She's got a lovely, lovely voice and a real feel for jazz. So, Anya, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and your singing?
Sure, yeah. I always loved singing, and at some point in my life, really fell in love with jazz. And once my daughter went to college, I decided, why don't I turn it into something more of a professional performance? And so I took some classes and hired some band, and I did certain things, and eventually started singing at the local clubs in the Bay Area where I live. All this time, though, I had zero vocal technique, and I had a couple of attempts to study, and each time I was turned away because I was really afraid that I am going to lose my um, quote unquote jazz voice, whatever it means. I struggled with the high notes and the tone and all that until I met Donna. And now I feel like I'm in the best possible hands. I'm really excited. I'm making progress. But I also have to admit it's a long road to fully being in control of your voice.
I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of people when they study, they everybody wants the quick fix. And you know what? When it comes to anything, honestly, but when it comes to singing, there really isn't a quick fix. Now, sometimes I could do something right away, and something will get better right away, and that's wonderful, and it seems very impressive. But for that to become a part of your being, for that to become a part of how it is that you sing, and for you to be able to then incorporate that into the music, that takes some time. I'm going to say one thing about Anya that is amazing is that she is able now to work on her music on her own because of the tools that I've been giving her. She works on her music on her own and says, oh, you know what? I figured out with this piece of music that I couldn't sing before exactly what to do here, 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 and make myself be able to sing it more efficiently. And for the most part, again, as I emphasize over and over, it has to do with the register balance. How much head voice, how much chest voice. Doesn't have to do with the support or the placement or anything like that. It has to do with, well, how much chest voice am I bringing up here? How much head voice? We'll do that at a practical level in this lesson, but let's get you going first. I know you have a little bit of an issue with your shoulder, so I'll tell you what, just breathe in and out and just do, and do it with the ya, ya, ya. I like doing that, just
Mm-hmm.
breathe in, breathe out, let the air flow. And again, as you're doing that, anybody who's watching, you could do it along. Great. And one more. Just let the air come in and let the air go out. That's great. Wonderful. So I'm going to start this just to kind of get things going. Ooh.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
Now, you notice obviously as we kept going down, there was more and more chest voice that added itself on the bottom.
Yeah.
All of those were fine. This last one, I'm going to take a little issue with because this bottom one that went into the chest voice was not quite as free as the other guys. It went into a chest voice, but I heard a little tiny grab to it. Did
Mm-hmm.
you notice that?
I've noticed that something went, yeah, not quite.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. it went into a chest voice, but it was a little bit too aggressive. There was a little bit of a grab to it. So
Yeah.
let's take the whole octave, again, starting with the head voice. Just back off with the volume on the other one. Don't prevent a chest voice from happening. Just back off a little bit with the volume. So the same ooh.
Ooh.
And that's a different chest voice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we go lower, again, just kind of ease into those bottom notes. It might be chestier as we keep going low. Just kind of ease into them and see what happens.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Ooh.
Now that one was interesting on the top note. Did you notice just a little bit more chest voice participation on that top note?
I did, yeah.
And how did that one feel?
It felt great. And I think it was because mentally I was preparing. I knew this will be the chestiest of all. So I think in my head I was kind of already going there.
Exactly. And you know what? And that's absolutely fine. There's your instinct saying, oh, wait a minute, we're a little bit lower, and that top note, although it's an ooh, I think I want a little bit more chest voice in there. So now that's interesting because some people would sing that same note, it would still be very heady. But you have a little bit more chest voice in your voice in general. You have thicker vocal cords, that kind of a thing, that where the chest voice can mix itself in the middle there. So your voice said, I want a little bit more chest voice. Now, I don't mind whether it's more chest voice or head voice as long as it's free. So that's why I ask you. I heard that it was free, but that's why I ask you, well, how did that feel? Soon as you say that felt fine, then beautiful. It feels fine, and we love that. Now, let's go the opposite way. Just plain old ah, and see what wants to happen.
Ah.
Obviously, way more chest voice, right? As long as it's comfortable, you go where your voice wants to go. Don't try to force anything. You just let your voice do it.
Ah.
Great.
Ah. Ah.
Wonderful.
Ah.
Now, how would you describe those top notes? Would you say that they're real chesty, mixy, heady? What would you say?
I'm struggling. I'm singing and I'm thinking, what am I doing? It feels, in all instances, it felt that I switched on the top, but it sounded like a chest voice. So I felt like this is my variation on some kind of mix that feels like switch but sounds like chest. And the higher I went, each time I thought, oh, now it will truly switch into the head voice, but it never felt that it truly switched it. Each time it was something different, but it continued to feel like this weird combination of disjointed hear and feel.
I'm so glad you described it that way, because this is what many, many, many people experience. Now, what you just sang there sounded amazing. It was wonderful. It sounded beautiful. It was great. It was free, had vibrations going, very much chest voice oriented.
Yeah.
You could almost say that it was belty. Can it be a little beltier? Yeah. If we broaden the vowel a little bit, it can be slightly beltier, but that had a lot of chest voice in it. Even though you felt the switch, it was very smooth. We heard no break in it whatsoever. There was no switch per se, except that you heard that it sounded free. So this is one of the problems that people have when they start to bring the chest voice up, because they want that more aggressive, belty, mixy chest voice. If it doesn't feel like a chest voice, then they think, oh, well, I'm not belting. Everybody's hearing a big break in the voice. we heard no break in the voice whatsoever, even though you felt it and you even heard it in your ear. You said, wait a minute, I hear it switching, but it's kind of not switching. That's confusing for a lot of people. And when you think, you know, I belabor the point, but when you think in terms of support and placement, that's not going to help you figure out what to do with that.
Right.
But when you think in terms of register balance, what's the ratio of chest voice to head voice? And every single note should have some kind of a mix on it. When you think in those terms, it makes it easy. Now, we're going to do the same thing. This is the last one we did. But I'm going to have you sing the whole thing on an O and not so loud. So obviously, as you already know, that's going to make it a little bit more head voice. So just for the audience's sake, so they understand, I'll say this again and again. The rounder vowels are going to give you more head voice, and the broader vowels are going to give you more chest voice. So the ah that you just sang was ah, ah, ah. You weren't singing ah, ah, ah. So I'm changing it to an O to get more on the head voice side. But that doesn't mean we lose the chest voice altogether. So be assertive with it, but it's on that O side, and you already know and anticipate there's going to be a little bit more head voice. So same arpeggio on the O, and you allow it to vibrate. Great. Now you've got the basic sound there, right? Can you sing that on the ah, leaning toward that O? So now you're singing an ah, but it's not nearly as broad an ah as you did with the other one that was chestier. Great. Now that's definitely more of a head voice. How do you experience that kind of a head voice in terms of the head voice, chest voice mix?
Well, it definitely felt headier compared to the original ah. Starting from the bottom, from the first note, it went into more of a head voice, and absolutely definite head voice switch, like no questions, it switched. I was pleased though that it sounded smooth, so I hope it sounded out smooth as well.
Absolutely.
It was also interesting, counterintuitive feeling I had. The last top notes, both were heady, but the top note was felt and sounded was more chest voice than the one before.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'll tell you why. I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the mistakes that everybody makes with the head voice is they don't allow the chest voice participation to come in. And sometimes it can feel a little bit more chesty with the head voice than it does with the chest voice. It depends on how a person experiences chest voice, head voice, and that relationship, right? So what you did is you had a head voice that had a lot of connection to the bottom part of your voice, which is why it wasn't weak. Most people, especially people who sing primarily with a chest voice, gospel, jazz, musical theater, whatever, once they get to a head voice, the head voice goes, and it's this weak little sound that they think, oh, that's a head voice. No, it's not. There's a lot more chest voice in the right kind of head voice than we normally think. So going back to what you said about when you introduced yourself and the other teachers, many teachers, in order to build the voice, have you sing classically. So you have to get the head voice going. Well, yes, you do. But they separate that too much from the chest voice. People who teach in that line of thought, it's like, oh, you have to get a strong head voice. Correct, but that means you have to have it connected to the chest voice. You don't separate that totally from what the chest voice is doing.
Right.
And what that does is that confuses a lot of people. They say, but wait a minute, I hear that it's heady, but it kind of feels chesty. That can't be right, because I've been told that's not what it's supposed to do. And it's these mixes and understanding the mixes and the different mixes. Now that same arpeggio, and FYI, it was the C, middle C to the C above. Yeah, you see, and you're surprised. You're like, oh, wait a minute. Wow. Now, let me ask you why that surprises you, that it was the C. Because it was so easy, because it was different?
Because it was very, very easy and free, and because it was not weak. Yeah,
Absolutely.
pretty kind
Absolutely.
to me. Yeah,
Now, if you can indulge me here,
of course.
um, I would like you to, one of the things that I just want to go over one phrase or the other because I want to show the difference between doing a phrase with a little bit more chest voice and switching to a little bit more head voice. Maybe you can tell me of all the music that we've gone through, which would be a good example of.
I think what could do Ask Me Now? Probably better to start with letter B. I thought then I'd always be, so we can approach the high notes.
Oh, then I thought I'd always be.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it, got it, got it. Right? Okay, so go ahead, do that, and then we're gonna just play around with it. Just a couple of lines, okay?
Uh-huh. I thought then I'd always be footloose and fancy free. How could I have been so blind when I once made light of turned out to be true love? So that's
Okay,
one version.
great. Now, just for the fun of it, you're gonna do the same thing. I want you to, if you could back up just a little bit more so people could see you, your head's a little cut off. Yeah, just like that, great.
Uh-huh.
Do it again, and I want you to do it, and I like the version, and I like what you're doing with that. It's a great interpretation. I want you to do it with a little bit more chest voice. So I want you to do it almost like you're doing it, instead of, this was almost melancholy. I want you to do it a
Yeah,
little bit more angry.
sure.
So just a little bit broader with the vowels, just a little bit more aggressive, and
Mm-hmm.
get a little bit more chest voice, get a little different sound.
Sure. I thought then I'd always be footloose and fancy free. How could I have been so blind? What I once made light of turned out to be true love.
Yeah. And again, choices. You
Mm-hmm.
could do that one, or you can do the other one.
Yeah. And so when I performed this song from stage, when I was approaching that line, my heart would go into a little lump to the bottom of my body, and I prayed to God that I hit those notes, whichever way I hit them, as long as I hit them. I just couldn't sing them in any reliable manner. And now, not only I can sing them, I can actually control the way I sing them. So it's just
And you can make a choice. Absolutely.
yeah.
Wonderful. Do you have any final questions or comments or?
No, I'm just thrilled with the opportunity, and I hope to study with you as long as I live.
Oh, that's sweet. I hope you do too, because you're a joy to work with.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for doing this and participating.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching Donna Reid Talks Voice. If you have any questions for me about this episode, please visit my website and click Contact.